On July 16th, 1945, at precisely 5:29 a.m. at the Alamogordo Bombing Range, the world witnessed something new and terrifying. The first nuclear detonation, codenamed Trinity. We were told that this was a test for a weapon meant to end the war and defeat our enemies. But a man, W.B., who worked closely with the scientists at Los Alamos, claims there was a much more sinister purpose behind the blast. His story, whispered to his family shortly before his death in 1989, revealed a secret kept hidden for decades. W.B. had always been careful with his words, cautious of whom he trusted, but as his health declined, he felt compelled to unburden himself. He began his tale. I was an assistant to one of the lead scientists at Los Alamos during the Manhattan Project. I won't say his name, but I'll refer to him as KG. Everyone thought we were racing to build a bomb to defeat the Axis powers. But the truth is, something happened in early 1945 that made us speed up our efforts. Something so horrifying that we had no choice but to change our plans. WB's voice trembled as he continued. It was March 5th, 1945, a morning I'll never forget. KG was in his office and I was transcribing some notes when Hart, one of the men KG had sent to scout potential test sites, burst through the door. His face was pale, eyes wide with fear. "Come quick, sir. Something's happened to Jones and Miller," he stammered. We hadn't expected them back for days, so this was already alarming. The drive out to Alamogordo was long and tense. WB described how Hart wouldn't answer any of their questions. He kept repeating, "You won't believe me. You have to see it for yourself." WB's stomach twisted with unease. Hart had always been a calm, dependable man. For him to be this shaken, WB knew something was seriously wrong. As they neared the range, Alamogordo came into view, and WB noticed Hart's face drain of color. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. WB followed Hart's gaze and saw two figures lying in the distance. The clothing was unmistakable. It was Miller and Jones. But something was horribly wrong. Hart stopped the truck about 100 yards from the bodies and refused to go any further. "That's as close as I'm getting," he muttered. KG and I exchanged glances, dread settling in the pit of my stomach, but we got out and walked toward them. As we approached, my breath caught in my throat. WB described the scene with chilling detail. Their skin was grotesque. It looked like they'd been submerged in acid, their faces twisted and warped beyond recognition. But there was no blood, no sign of struggle, just this eerie, unnatural stillness. Next to their bodies was an old wooden box, engraved with Roman numerals, 666. I remember it vividly because I've had an interest in ancient symbols since childhood, but there were other engravings, strange markings I couldn't identify. When I started to point them out, KG quickly silenced me. Hart, still in the truck, refused to come closer, and when WB asked him what had happened, all Hart could say was, "Something beyond us, something we can't explain." KG ordered WB to stay with the bodies while he returned to Los Alamos for help. It was a command WB could not refuse, despite the growing terror in his heart. WB recounted those agonizing hours waiting alone, his eyes never leaving the warped remains of his colleagues. When KG returned with reinforcements, trucks, and equipment, it was clear to WB that his superior had expected something like this. They erected a hangar over the bodies and the box, sealing them away from prying eyes. The soldiers worked tirelessly for days, constructing the now infamous Hangar 666. Once the hangar was completed, most of the soldiers left. Only KG, 4 guards, and I remained. The atmosphere was suffocating, thick with dread. We began examining the bodies and the box, though we were forbidden to touch anything directly. KG took samples with instruments, but there was no decay, no smell. It was as if time had stopped for those two men. Days passed, and the mystery of the wooden box deepened. Finally, an expert in ancient languages was brought in. The man, a scholar in his 60s, looked as though he had seen death itself when he laid eyes on the box. After a tense silence, he revealed that the inscriptions were Sumerian, the language of one of the oldest civilizations known to man. He told us the box bore a curse. "He who is worthy and possesses the box shall rule in hell," he said, his voice shaking. "Once 5 are taken, the ruler will be given his throne in hell and on earth." WB shuddered as he recalled those words. It was the first time he had felt true, soul-crushing fear. The scholar requested more time to fully translate the markings, and KG agreed, though WB could see the weight of the revelation pressing down on him. Then came the morning of April 4th. WB woke early, unable to sleep. As he entered the hangar, his blood ran cold. The bodies of Miller and Jones were gone. I dropped my cup of coffee and ran to KG's tent. He didn't believe me at first, but when he saw it for himself, his face went as pale as Hart's had. We searched the area and found 2 sets of footprints, one leading toward the mountains, the other toward the old McDonald ranch house in the distance. WB and the soldiers split up. WB's group headed to the ranch house, while KG and the others followed the trail into the mountains. WB described the terrifying uncertainty that gripped him as they searched the house. The soldiers went inside, but found nothing. The footprints led to the front steps, and then vanished. WB paused here, as if the weight of the memories was too much to bear. He never found out what happened to the bodies of Miller and Jones. All he knew was that something ancient, something evil, had been unleashed that day in the desert, and the government had been desperate to contain it, whatever the cost.